Hey guys, welcome back. I'm gonna be a little bit quiet because people are sleeping around here. It's 1 a.m. in the student dorm, but I have with me today the best love couple in terms of casting right here, JDoza and Boulevard, that are going to walk us through a bit what happened into the top 32 of NA and what can we expect. So how are you doing, guys?
I'm doing good. How are you, Doza?
I'm doing pretty good. That's the first time I think we've been called that. I think
That is a first.
I have been called worse things though, so I think we're good.
I mean, we can call you an alien based on your camera right now, but that's for another day. Well, there's been a lot of action in the NA server, so Boulevard, I know you're usually keeping up with the deck, so what has been happening in terms of decks? What has been prevalent?
Scion blew everything else out of the water. With 21 Scion decks coming into the top 32, the only deck that we have ever seen be more represented in the top 32 was Nasus, which took the cake at 23, which I hope we never see again. But then there's like this massive gap between Scion and the next most represented decks, which are like Lee Sin and Ziggsburn, which I think it's a pretty expected meta. You know, there weren't really any big surprises coming out at the last second that topped. We even didn't have that much diversity in the decks that did top. There were only 17 unique decks. Really a lot less one-ofs than we typically see. So it feels like players have kind of, figured out the meta that they like. The main thing that sticks out to me as well is there are a lot of decks that have topped every seasonal. Like I think it was Overwhelm, Invoke, Draven Ezreal, Lee Sin, and now Lee Sin is the only one that still holds that title. No Draven Ezreals, no Tribeams anywhere in the top 32.
Alright, do we have any dark horse in that top 32 in terms of decks?
Um, there is one deck that I actually had to ask a couple of players about because I had never seen it before, and it is Fizz Zed, Bandle City, Ionia, Yordle, and Arms. And I sent this to a couple of chats and I was like, what is this? And they're like, this is just Fizz Lee Sin with Zed instead of Lee Sin. And I was like, okay, hate that. Really don't love that. A couple people were like, hey, here's the version that I was going to run. It looked pretty similar, not quite exactly the same, but like it's an aggro deck. At least I think it's supposed to be. And then Eye of the Dragon is still in here because we were once a Lee Sin deck once upon a, and like scattered pods in the deck, which I don't hate. Yordles and Arms is your only slow card. You can go ahead and grab that. But like the deck looks so weird on the surface. And the players' lineup is just insane because they also brought Bandletree. And you're right. There's a Fizz in this deck. They can't run Bandletree Fizz. So they brought one Ziggs, one Lulu, one other Yordle, and called it a day and made top 32. And that's like the thing that definitely stands out to me the most is like an odd deck that I just like totally came out of nowhere for me.
Okay, we're going to definitely look forward to that flare, but how about you, Doza? Is there any deck that sticked out for you, or then any deck you like? I know you are a Burn fan.
Well, yes, I'm not gonna lie. I do love me some Ziggs Burn. I've played that deck on ladder. It's very, very fun, and it's a very easy to play deck. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing a pretty good representation of it. But so Draven Scion, that's the obvious one, right? Like everybody kind of knew this deck's OP. Everybody's gonna bring it, and then we see the 22, like Boulevard said. Thankfully, not 23, but Lee Sin. So Boulevard just mentioned Lee Sin, and this is a deck that every single time we see it, like, and it's highly represented too. We have 12 decks in the top cut. This was the third most represent, actually tied second most represented deck in the top 32. This deck is like nowhere until we get to the top 32, and then once the top 32 hits, everybody starts playing Lee Sin again. And it's always been like that from what I can remember in most tournaments. We don't see it pop up a lot until we actually get to the top cut. And then all of a sudden, everybody decides to use the high skill ceiling deck and Lee Sin and try to wreck with it in the top cut. And I think that's what is most interesting to me just about this deck in general. Lee Sin, it just keeps popping up in every single meta, but it's by no means an easy deck to play, and we only see it pop up in the top cut.
I mean, yeah, it's the people's choice for some time now since Lee Sin has been emerging as a deck because you can control the board quite easily, have a lot of survivability, then you're turning into an aggressive deck on turn 7, 8, and then just kill people out. Pretty easy, but high skill level. But before we're actually talking about the players, that are making it, I want to ask you guys about players that you would have loved to see in the top 32 and that didn't make it. How about you, Boulevard? who would you have wanted to see?
I mean, Majin and Henneke are sort of like the golden boys of America's Runeterra seasonals. Like, you're going to expect them in just about every top
Yeah.
cut. Majin really unfortunately had to drop out at 6-1 because of the delay from round 7. It made the tournament go too long. He had plans already that night that he couldn't cancel. So, like, he had to drop out at 6-1. Henneke, I would imagine, Noxus kind of sucks if you're not playing Burn or Draven Scion, and a lot of Henneke's power has been tied to like Draven Ezreal style decks in the past. So I don't know. Like, Henneke might just have not played this season, like might have just taken a little bit of a break. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely missed that name from Top Cut.
How about you, JDoza? Who would you have wanted to see in the top cut?
Yeah, I got to agree with the Majin Bay because I saw all the tweets and stuff about the delays, and I know EU had some problems too. And it's very disheartening when I'm not gonna lie, when something like that, when a ball drop leads to a player just not being able to participate because they were expecting different time frames. Like that's all it was. Like he had another prior engagement. So I got to go with Majin Bay. Cephalopod not being in the top cut, that would have been nice as well. Unfortunately, not getting Cephalopod in the top cut. It's always another tournament name that we're used to seeing in basically every single tournament. Back in the early days of the OLS, Cephalopod constantly top cutting the OLS, and then I think Cephalopod still to this day has probably played in the most different tournaments across the entire tournament scene of any player in the entire Legends of Runeterra. So
All right, now let's move forward to the people that actually made it, and we're going to go through a couple of names that are actually familiar to the people, and let's say give them a rating or maybe a chance on winning this seasonal or making it far. And the first on my list is the sensation from the last one, the one that got a lot of buys, the Death Note machine, glop.
Glop. This is Glop's third or fourth seasonal top, and I think the furthest he's made it is top 8. I'm not like super familiar on like how far people tend to make it in top 32, but I think Glop has not put up the best results in terms of like getting out of the top 16. But I don't know. They seem to really have a grasp on what they're doing this time around. Went 8-0 instead of last time. They kind of got memed on for going like 3-2, and then everybody dropped and they made it to a 7-2. So like Glop had to play the rounds this time. I definitely give him more chances than he did last time around, but I'm not, I don't think he's gonna take the whole thing.
No, right. But we have another player that picked this game up casually, and then they went on an OLS because then we are familiar with the scene, and now he's making a little bit of waves. And that player is Kochua. So how are we rating Kochua, for example, JDoza?
So Kochua, I mean, we've seen Kochua as well on just a lot of different tournaments in the past. Kochua, I feel like will do pretty well. I haven't been like incredibly impressed with Kochua's play in the past, so I don't think Kochua is gonna do insane in this tournament. Maybe out in the top 32 to be exact. The bigger thing that actually stuck out to me in the top, I actually mentioned this to Boulevard a little bit earlier. Team FNX. So Team FNX for me as a whole, I think is going to make it far just because, I mean, they have odds. I mean, they have, what was it, like 3 or 4 players from Team FNX are in the top cut. So one of them's likely to, hopefully, I'm probably going to be eating my words. Next weekend, they all are out of the top 32. But they most likely, somebody should make it pretty far. And honestly, Boulevard, we've casted FNX in the past as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of FNX. And very impressed with how they've grown as a team. I would not have put them as favorites before when we casted them previously in different, South American leagues. But now, I mean, they've all grown as players, as a team, and I do think they have a really good shot to make it far here in this top cut.
Quick question, CastMin. Can we curse on this stream? Is this like PG-13? What are we talking here?
Leave it to Boulevard.
Well, technically, yes. Practically, I would not refer to, but
All
Boulevard,
right,
you do
Doza, you're
Boulevard
out of your
things.
goddamn mind. What in the hell are you talking about? Kochua is a 90% to win this tournament. That is an easy top 5 power pick if we're looking at power rankings. Kochua is cracked. I cannot believe that you would sleep on this man that hard. I can't believe you came up here and disrespected. This guy started playing the game in like June, What? Oh, I'm gonna enter a tournament. Wins the tournament. Oh, let me play another one. He like EXO day 1 and then dropped because he couldn't play day 2, and he was like, yeah, I guess that would have been another tournament top. Then Beyond the Bandlewood drops. Where's Kochua getting second place with Draven Scion on the opening weekend because somebody brought a counter lineup before the builds were refined. Kochua is my favorite to take the entire tournament.
I think my favorite for the entire tournament, I'm going to go with Loser Beam. And actually, to be honest with you, I that was hard for me too, because What Am I is on this list, and we all know how much I love What Am I.
What
and
Am I is an
in general
easy
is just-
0% chance to win this tournament. That dude's
You
top
are
like
you are
6
insane.
seasonals
All right,
and
whoa,
has
you're
never
gonna throw
gotten close to winning a
okay,
season.
whoa.
Winning
No,
the
you're gonna
event,
throw
0% chance What
Kochua
Am I
at
wins.
90%, and then
Yeah.
What Am I at 0? You
I don't
out
think
here,
you understand how
goddamn it.
percentages work. If
That's
Kochua is
ridiculous.
90%, that means the other 31 players have to fight for 10%, and What Am I gets 0 of it.
Nope. Nope. No way. You crazy.
That man has
You
top
are
too many
crazy.
seasonals and fallen out in top 8 at best. I'm not confident in What Am I winning the event. Maybe he makes it to top 4 finally when it doesn't matter, but he's definitely not winning.
Yeah, I will say, as far as What Am I is concerned, definitely a little bit disappointed in the past with because What Am I in the past? First off, has top cut a lot of seasonals, but I feel like every time we talk about What Am I, like might be able to win this tournament, great player, topped a lot of tournaments.
At a certain point, we have to recognize that it's a bait to like put him at number 1 on your power rankings for a seasonal.
Exactly. Like when does it stop, right? When does it become instead of What Am
Either
I
he
could win?
eventually like he's gonna break the ceiling and like at that time we will have underrated him and said, oh, like he's topped like 8 seasonals, he hasn't won any of them. I don't think he's gonna win this one.
0%. He's too good. He's too. No matter how many
0%.
times he's
Coach you at 90%. Everyone else can
insane.
fight for the last 10. 0 if it goes to
my
What Am I.
God. Disrespecting my boy. What am I?
Jordan is a boomer. He takes a little bit of time to start the engine, so
actually it would be the most fitting if this is the seasonal that he wins, the one that just like absolutely nothing's on the line. He finally comes through and gets to win.
No Worlds qualification, nothing. Yeah.
I mean, he's like fresh off of a top 4 at Worlds, right? And like you can't be that effective for that long all in the same meta, right? Like eventually something like other people have to overtake you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, speaking of familiar faces, another familiar face that I do recognize in the top 42 is Drizzle, and he has been putting up the performances in grassroots tournaments in Top Cut. So, what are our calls on Drizzle?
Drizzle's in the What Am I boat, where I think Drizzle is probably the best player without a tournament win. He's got a couple of second places, but I'm pretty sure he has not been able to go all the way in any event. I mean, he's also fresh off of a second place at a Mastering Runeterra. I think he had said that he was looking to test with Kochua, which is obviously going to grab him a couple percentage points. But I think he's worried that they like tried to do the tiebreaker math, and he's pretty sure he has to play Kochua round 1. So 0% for Drizzle.
Man, you are all in on Kochua. If Kochua is out in the top 32, I'm coming for you, Boulevard.
I hope not, because I already DM'd Levins. I'm like, look, I know you're doing those power rankings. Let me tell you about Kochua real quick. Let me bend your ear.
Oh my God. Now I'm curious to see where those power rankings end up with Kochua too. Yeah, Drizzle, I agree with Boulevard. Drizzle, another great player. So like comparing, let's say to What Am I, right? What Am I outside of the seasonals has actually done fantastic. What Am I has won like God knows how many OLSs back in the day. I mean, What Am I has taken tournaments before. Drizzle not only hasn't, taken a seasonal, but has problems, taking tournaments back. And that's not to say Drizzle's a bad player. Like Boulevard said, second place, top cut, stuff like that, top 4s, but so I'm not super confident in Drizzle's ability to take this. One question I want to throw out there, just to switch to a different person real quick. Do we know, did Tippy Tip stream the whole thing on no delay again?
Always.
I
Always.
did.
I love that.
This is like his third seasonal top and no delay on the stream.
Dude, I want to throw a shout out to Tippy Tips. Like I haven't personally talked to Tippy Tips too much, but every single tournament I see in his stream title, and me and Boulevard back in the day when we were doing this like on our own, like co-casting it on the side, we would always go to Tippy Tips because Tippy Tips was always streaming and always on no delay. Shout out to Tippy Tips because that's baller, man. That is
biggest
great.
Coconuts in LOR, Tippy Tips.
Yeah, no F's given, man. Just doing it right. I appreciate that for sure.
Don't you know the meme? Tippy Tips chat carried him to seasonals twice now.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. It's all chat.
It's all chat. Yeah, it's always chat. And then when everything goes wrong, it's not chat's fault at all. Yeah, that's how it works.
Of course. I mean, speaking of other familiar faces, we mentioned the Southeast, not the Southeast Asia. It's another seasonal. Never mind. The South
Are you gonna
Americas.
mention Blackboss? Are you gonna mention Blackboss?
Yes, Blackboss and
Yeah.
Hotamonda.
Blackboss. Do we? All right, Boulevard. I actually wanna ask you about Blackboss
Yeah.
because we've seen Blackboss in so many tournament top cuts. Same deal. I'm just, it's so questionable. Like, he's definitely a great player, definitely has the capability of top cutting, but we knew him in the past, I feel, for like those very innovative deck builds, like having some really weird tech choices. Like, I'll never forget Submersible in the Southern American leagues. Like, he was the first person to really use that card. I didn't really get to see his lineup from the top 32, but I feel like we haven't really seen as much innovation out of Black Boss as much lately.
No, it's been a while since he's innovated anything, but I do really like Blackboss on aggressively postured decks, and his top was with Ziggs, Poppy, and Scion. I think those are two decks that fit his playstyle very well. And then his third deck was Lee Sin. And that one throws me for a loop, but I don't think this is the first seasonal that Blackboss has topped with Lee Sin. Like, he tends to play aggro, and then like he's also just got Lee Sin kind of sneaking in there. And I'm confident in the kind of lineup that he's brought, and like I think the meta suits him pretty well. I would imagine he's going to swap over to Bandle Pirates for top 32. There have been a lot of like South American players where I'm like, Bandle Pirates is the perfect deck for you, and then they just don't bring it to tournaments, and I'm like, okay, sure. Like Blackboss, I really see as like a good Bandle Pirates player, but we'll see if he swaps over to that deck or not.
All right, what are your predictions on Blackboss JDoza?
I still get like a top 8. He probably more middle of the pack. I have this funny suspicion, and the reason why I think Kochua won't go too far in this tournament either is, CastMin, you keep mentioning a lot of names that we've seen before. There's Glop, there's Kochua, Blackboss, Spartan Enzo. Even I've seen before in the LRA. Tippy Tips, we've seen a lot, but there is a lot of new names that I have not seen at all myself. I mean, One Kuro Any, Hobbs, Dudu De Nunu, which I love the name, by the way. And so I think that with so many new names, we might actually see a lot of new faces in the top 4 this time. Maybe like 3 out of 4 new faces. I mean, and that's secretly what I'm always kind of hoping for, because I like seeing new people in the game, new faces. So yeah, I'd say like a solid top 8 finish for Black Boss.
I really
Top
wonder.
8 sounds about right for Blackboss.
I really wonder where Arcado is. What happened? Did he not win against Cameron or something? Oh well, let's move forward to some other players. Well, let's keep track on this South America's side, and there's Hotamonda there, and he's been winning a few things recently. He's been playing on other servers as well. He's been topping a fight night now. So, what our predictions are on him?
JDoza is not only not the best player in this tournament, not the best South American player in this tournament. I don't even think he's the best Argentinian in this tournament. That's got to go to Thomas Zamo 2000.
Yeah,
I
agree.
But Argentina's pretty freaking good at Legends of Runeterra, so like he's still got that going for him. I would say JDoza pretty strong contender for like top 4, but I think he's gonna fall to Thomas. Like, I'm pretty sure Thomas has to go just a little bit further.
You know why?
Yeah.
You know why he's not the best Argentinian? Because he's not Argentinian. He's Mexican.
He's Mexican?
Yeah, he's living in Argentina.
Okay,
yeah.
I was about to say, 'cause
Or the
I
other way
remember there
around.
was
I don't remember.
country. I know there was a country tournament, and he played for Argentina.
Oh.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He actually, Jade's wanted to reach out.
Let me check his Twitter real quick. Let me see if he's got it in his bio.
He reached out to me a while ago, actually, because Jade's wanted to also cast.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, it was actually casting back when, back in my day when we started casting Legends of Runeterra. So Jade's Bond has been in the mix of things for quite some time now, but I do agree with Boulevard. I think that there's like, all right, so if we use like FNX as an example, which I brought up earlier, right? There's a lot of Southern American players in here that I think are all good players. They're all great in their own right, but they're not spectacular. Like Boulevard said, like Thomas Zamo 2000 to me is like a spectacular player. Like all the FNX people, there's what 3 or 4 FNX people that are in here, and I think as a team, they have a pretty good shot, just again because of the numbers. But I wouldn't necessarily put players like M14, FNX, Chimera, and Was Russo. Was Russo is probably the name that sticks out to me the most in that. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to go too far. So with Jay Tamanda, it's kind of the same deal. He's a great player, but yeah, I don't necessarily see him. I mean, maybe like a top 16, but I would expect him out of the top 32 as well.
Mm-hmm.
God, it feels so. I feel like I'm talking crap about players. I'm like, yeah, this guy sucks. He's gonna
Feels
be out in
good,
the top
doesn't it?
32. Yeah,
You got to make predictions. Half these players have to fall in the top 32.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's just it is what it is. Some people are going to be out after the top 32. There's not really much we can do.
I got a
about it,
question
so.
here for you, Doza. If I may derail this a little bit, who do you want to make it to the top 4? Like, who's the player you look at this list and you say you deserve it?
Who did? You know what? Storm.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird one to throw out there, but I have seen Storm since like closed beta, like all over the place. The Storm's been playing forever. I don't even, again, I don't personally know Storm. I've never actually interacted. I've seen them in different servers like RCO and stuff like that, but they've just been around a while. And players like that, especially because I know I've been here like pretty much since the beginning of the game. I just love to see players that have been here a while. Similarly to like new players, right? I love to see players that have been here since the very, very beginning.
You hate those middle of the road players.
Yeah,
you want the boomers and you want the zoomers. You don't want these millennial players.
Because all the people in the middle are like friggin', they're like bandwagoners, right? Like they just jump on to have some fun, win a tournament.
If you've been here since TF Fizz meta, we hate you.
Yeah,
which is yeah, I think that's actually Majin Bay that you're talking about. He started as seasonal started. So what I'm hearing is you just hate Majin Bay. What am I think actually also started around then. So like Majin Bay, or like What Am I is like a millennial player. He's been playing for I think a little over a year or around a year. But you like these closed beta players, and you like the people that started like 2 months ago.
Majin Bay I know started later, but I thought What Am I's been around for a little longer than Majin Bay. I thought
I couldn't find anything on him for his player profile prior to like August, like end of Bilgewater.
Just gonna go update that Wikipedia page for What Am I.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I actually I want to see Nulk Pass succeed. I feel like Nulk Pass has very quietly carried the torch that was left behind by Raptor. And no one's really picked up on that. We're like, Nulk Pass, this is probably like 4th seasonal top, I think. Fell in top 8 a couple of times. Like, I would love to see Nulk Pass get a top 4.
JDoza, we cannot hear.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, of course I was muted. Yeah, another person actually that has been that I just randomly saw here. I didn't even realize they top cut. Flock. So Flock's actually so similar to Storm. Flock been around for a very long time. Streams. I think Flock actually gave a shot at casting in the very, very beginning for like the LRA scene and stuff like that. But Flock been very involved in the community since day one as well, as far as the South American community. So
I don't think I've ever interacted with Flock, but like it was probably like a year ago at this point. I ran a Twitter poll and I was like, who is the best aggro player in Legends of Runeterra? And I just got spammed by people being like, it's Flock. Flock is the best aggro player, hands down.
Yeah. Yep. And streams a lot, like I said. Like I constantly, if I load up the Legends of Runeterra Twitch, like Flock on there a lot of the time. So it would be nice to see another streamer doing pretty well here.
A name from previous season, very first seasonals, I hope JDoza is not gonna have anything against him because he's a fresh player, is Sekku that made top cut once more. So do we have any predictions on him? He has been playing with Wombats for some time now. What are you feeling about him?
I have been baited by my love for the Wombats in the past, because it is just a team where I love pretty much all of the players, and I always, I think the best one that, like the one that has put up the biggest performance was Random, and like I counted Random out because I'm like, Random's tendency is to just throw a game, and then he did it in the finals, and I was like, I expected him to do it sooner than that. He still kind of gives me shit for giving him shit for that, but I was like, hey, I wasn't wrong. I'm not super big on Sekku just because like I love the Wombats too much. I don't want that to like mask my my analysis of them. I don't think Seku's making it past. Sekku might be my pick to like fall in top 32.
Yeah, and Sekku, Canadian there, another Canadian player making the top cut. But yeah, I do agree. I do like the Wombats. You know what I like about Sekku in this instance is Sekku actually lost the first round 0-2 in the seasonal, and I love I love when people like that when that happens and they're able to just bring it back and just win the rest of the day. I think that shows a lot of mental fortitude. And it's funny too, if you actually go to Sekku's Twitter profile, it literally says in Sekku's profile, never leave home without your positive mental. So I think that's perfect. It literally proved the positive mental right there, going 0-2 and then winning out the rest of the day. So if anybody's gonna stay positive throughout the thing and at least give it a shot at winning, it might be
It's
Sekku.
what
But
am I?
it's, yeah, what am I? What am I? I will say is also another amazingly positive player. So
Is anyone really not positive in this community? Is anyone flaming really hard?
You want to talk about our world champion real quick? I know we're staying on the AM side of things, but
That's
I don't know
not.
what you're talking about. Alan's a great guy.
also former seasonal champion Mo, outside of very specifically the champions interview that they did for him in this seasonal, like I don't know who that was that they got. They looked and sounded exactly like Mo, but the lines were way off. He was talking about, let's all be positive and just never flame anybody. It's if you've got nothing nice to say nothing at all. And I was like,
They
"What the
paid
fuck
him
is that?"
extra. They paid him extra to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because
Paid
he's a
sector.
figurehead in the community. Like people follow him, so you know they want to get the message out there. Good call on the part. So
All right. We talked a bit about this, guys, but what do we expect to actually top or make a performance in terms of decks in this seasonal for Americas?
So I was really big on Lee Sin Nami lineups. And I felt the most effective way to do that was to replace the Zoe in Nami with Tom Kench, like Cephalopod did at, I think, the Mastering Runeterra tournament a couple weeks ago. And only two players have topped with that kind of strategy. It was Sixlon with Lee Sin, Tommy Nami, and Riven Vi as the third deck, and then Loser Beam, who replaced the Zoe out of Lee Sin with Zed. So if we can get more players to make that adaptation, that's a lineup that I think is going to perform very well. I heard that EU was like blown away by, I think it was Lee Sin, Nami, and Scion was like their big dark horse lineup that put a lot of players in. So I'd like to see more players swap over to a strategy like that and just play the two best Scion counters in the game. And your third deck can be whatever you want it to be, just something that has a positive matchup into Scion. Could be Darkness, could be Bandletree, depending on how you want to play it. Maybe that Riven Vi is something that other players will pick up on. But that's just a strategy that I'd really like to see everyone adapt to, because they failed to do it miserably in the Cosmic Creation seasonal. Majin was the only player to swap over to Tom Kench and Aphelios, and he won the seasonal for it. So I'd like to see everybody learn from that a little bit and make that adaptation.
I don't know about Dark Horse. I don't think that's a Dark Horse lineup. I think it's
Nobody brought
lineup.
Lee Sin, Nami, and Scion in Americas. Like, it's the third deck is kind of elusive, but apparently Europe said the third deck is Scion. It's 50-50 into Scion.
Yeah.
That's as good as you're gonna get.
But I also feel like, because I don't necessarily disagree, right? Because I think Lee Sin and Nami in the same lineup is definitely a threat. But I feel so dirty even saying that, because it's just just combo decks that are just so degenerate. Like it's just
Someone's
I'm gonna
take
wait
that
and go
lineup,
off.
and whoever high rolls it the hardest is gonna win the tournament. There's gonna be 8 people that lose in top 32 because they didn't draw their champions, but we only need one.
But so I feel like, I don't know if Nami's exactly like Lee Sin, so feel free to stop me if I sound stupid, and I know Boulevard has no problem doing that.
Oh no, I'll let you go. The public's gonna hear this, so if you wanna make an ass out of yourself, you can be my guest right now.
So Lee Sin, we've always talked about the skill ceiling is so high in Lee Sin because it's about how good you play the deck when you don't draw Lee Sin, right? When you have to wait out the entire game, and it seems like you're at 1 health, the game's over, but you still take it back. We've seen that a lot. Nami doesn't necessarily have that capability for as much sustain as Lee Sin does, but I feel like it's similar in a sense that you really are just biding your time until you get Nami. So if there are people that bring that lineup, like you mentioned, Boulevard, Lee Sin, Nami, and Draven Scion, it's gonna be like you have to be a very skillful player, I think, to manage that lineup properly and actually do well in this tournament. Otherwise, you're just gonna get bodied by people that are playing more consistent, more like low to the ground, honest decks that aren't just trying to 20-0 you in 1 turn. So but yeah, I feel so dirty agreeing that Lee Sin and Nami is going to be good. And normally I'm the first one to be like, burn baby, like burn baby, burn, like let's do it, like Vandal Pirates, all that stuff. But no,
there was another lineup that was performing very well in the weeks coming into the seasonal. It was Sivir Akshan, Plunder, and Ziggs Poppy. That won 2 Mastering Runeterra tournaments, and just like Plunder was only a one of represented here. you just bring 3 decks that like hard lose to Scion and you soft target the Nami lineups. And if if you think that a lot of players are going to be swapping over to Nami to counter all the Scion that's in top 32, maybe that's a line that you go since you're planning on banning out the Scion anyway. Something like that could really like upset the tournament. And I love when those massive lineup changes come in and players get rewarded for it. So that like I'm really looking for some of that.
I feel like Sivir Akshan is just like, I don't necessarily think it's terrible, but I think people are just kind of sick of Sivir Akshan because we've
It's
been
a
playing it
hard
for so
deck,
long.
and I think the matchup charts that I saw has it as like a 30% win rate into Scion. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not great.
good.
Well, and then
But
look at like Scion's win rates. It literally
yeah,
has like a good
Scion's
matchup
cracked
versus
across
every
the board.
deck. Yeah, so why play something? And well, even something like Lee Sin and like Nami has a super good win rate across the board too. So why bother playing something like Sivir Akshan when you just have by the numbers better chances versus most of the decks if you're playing something like Nami and Draven Scion. So I think here's a dark horse, which is a
All right.
known dark horse, but it's a dark horse. Shellfolk. I think that's another incredibly hard deck to play. I think, but I don't know. Like I feel like somebody might impress with Shellfolk. I mean, it's when it goes off hard and can take
Production,
down.
please, can we disconnect JDoza from Copium? He has a too big of a dose.
I'm looking at these Ziggs burn and these Bandle Pirates like, yeah, bring Shellfolk, buddy. I dare you. Especially if players are gonna like try to just bring like triple aggro to either like beat out the Scion or so like Scion usually beats aggro. Like the matchup charts are just cracked there for some reason, but Nami doesn't. And I think a lot of it's gonna come down to like, are we all just looking to soft counter Scion because everybody brought Scion, or are we looking to like, maybe take it a step further? Everyone's gonna swap over to Nami. Let's soft counter the Nami. Because when we've seen dominated formats like this in the past where like you have a deck that puts over 20 of it into the top cut, players just still bring it and players still just win the tournament with it. That's what happened with TF Fizz. It was a little different with Empires of the Ascendant. Like everybody brought Nasus and Lysandra. Those were the 2 big decks, and then the finals was like a deep mirror. So it's kind of hard to say. I think that we are going to see like 2 counter lineups in the finals, but that might still include Scion to a degree.
Okay, so actually, you guys are throwing bird in my face. All right, I feel you. I get it.
Because
I
you
get
deserve
it.
it.
All right, with Shellfolk. But so then, what do you guys feel? Like, how do you guys feel about darkness?
You should not have brought darkness to this tournament unless you are confident you can beat Scion with it. And I think there are a lot of darkness players that lost in Swiss because they beat their testing partners on darkness, and their testing partners are not the best players in the world. And then they got bodied by good players on Scion.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about dark. I like the archetype in general. I think it has a cool play style.
Unless your name is Yamato or you're not playing in Asia. Nah,
Yeah.
nah. Well, we are going to see, but before closing these things out, I want you guys to share some of your, maybe one of your favorite moments from the season, because you have been on the broadcast you have been watching this for a long time now. So tell us that, and after that we're going to get a very special shout out from a very special person in this interview. You know who it is already. So JDoza, what would have been your most interesting or the moment that you enjoyed the most throughout this season, because you have been through some now?
That's a tough question. I mean, okay, you know what? I will. I don't necessarily. I'm gonna go the opposite because I really feel I want to get this message out there. Can I go the opposite? Can I say like what did I not like about the season? Can I do that? Is that okay? Is that okay?
Go ahead, it's your interview. Why the hell not?
Well, and listen, I'm the first one to usually be positive about shit, but like dude, the delay was so the fact and it was expounded because
I thought
like
you were going to talk about Jason Florent losing the last feature match of the day for like the 4th season and going to like just bubbling out.
He literally makes it to the last game every single time.
I swear to God, he's been the last feature match for at least 3 seasonals, and we have to watch him bubble every time. And he won game 1 this time, and we were like, "Go, Jason!" And that just
has he gotten like 17th? Is it official? He's gotten or sorry, not 17th, 33rd place. Like, is that a thing?
No, he's gotten like 50th place because 33rd through 50 is reserved for people with 7-2 records that are high on ladder.
Oh, replacement. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just because overall, I think there was a lot of great moments to really peg a single one there, but the only thing that really stuck out to me, unfortunately, is the delays. Like it's the only thing I can think of when I think back to the season, which is really unfortunate. But
Look, there
I'm really, yeah, I'm
there
really hoping
there
that
was a
that's
guy
not
that
the part.
forgot to press a button for several times
Yeah,
in several rounds.
yeah, he fell asleep. Yeah,
How about you,
but yeah,
Boulevard?
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
My favorite was so because I just got done writing a recap article about the feature matches for Wisdom, and at one point it was Loser Beam's feature match in like round 7, and my write up on game 2 was Loser opened Zoe and Nami 2-0. And that was it. That was my entire feature for the game. That was probably my favorite moment. It was just like kind of like the amount of memeing that we got to do on the format because like we've been in this meta for so much longer than normal ones because like we had Worlds qualifiers, then we had Worlds, and like all of that has been in the same meta with no balance changes in between. So it's just been kind of fun to like watch the evolution of that. And even now, like there's 22 Scion. I would eat my hat if any of them played the same 40 cards.
So CastMin asks us what our favorite moment is. I say what my most disliked moment is, and then Boulevard still manages to find a way to talk about himself. So,
Always. Always. I talked about Loser.
I'm sorry, CastMin.
There
Look, we
is
don't
no
get
problem.
recognition for the community. We got to do it ourselves.
Exactly. Well, it's been a blast to have you guys around, and before we're ending, you guys, you might see this interview on YouTube, you might see it on the Mastering Runeterra side because it might appear out there, but before we end, we are going to have a very special sponsor, a representative from the non-biased shoutouts, Boulevard. Go do your thing.
Oh, absolutely. Shout out to Boulevard, baby. I can't believe you're crushing it. The seasonal was like 8 hours, and you watched all of that so you could write a recap article on it, get it turned around on the next day. That's talent, baby. You're crushing it.
Tough life Boulevard has watching video
It's
games.
been
for
so
8
hard
hours.
for me,
It's
but I
so hard.
persevered. It's really just inspirational.
Alright, awesome takes, shit talks, everything you had in this interview and probably in the future seasonal interviews to come. Thank you guys for being around, thank you guys for watching, so see you next time.